Now, the Hunt Palmer Show.
A magic beyond anything you could ever imagine.
You are now listening to the Hunt Palmer Show. Brought to you by Sagrera Farms on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Locking down the middle of the day.
You really think that's the best idea?
Live from the Raising Cane's studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
It's quite a piece of work.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Raising Cane studio downtown in the capital city on this Thursday, working towards the weekend. Brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef. Appreciate you being with us. Got Jordan Kitchens, Cassie Spazzali back there on the ones and twos. Let's go to Clemson, South Carolina in 15 minutes. We'll talk to Cole Bryson from the Fan upstate. Been some murmurs about some inconsistent quarterback play from Chris Vizina up there in camp. Could Clemson put a freshman out there on the field in a week in 2 days? We'll see. And then another just full check-in on what's going on up there in Clemson as we are getting closer to college football opening things up officially this weekend and then in earnest next weekend. Luke Johnson's going to check in from Dallas, Texas in 30 minutes. We'll talk to Luke about Saints and Cowboys tomorrow in the finale of the preseason. Excited to chat with Connor O'Gara. He's from the next round. He's going to be with us at the top of hour number 2. I want to talk SEC quarterbacks. There have been some decisions made in the Southeastern Conference, some with LSU opponents. Tennessee, Arkansas, Alabama have named starting quarterbacks in, I use air quotes here, controversies or decisions that had to be made at the quarterback spot. So we'll get to Connor O'Gara and talk about those coming up at 2 o'clock. So plenty to do. If you've checked out LouisianaSports.net today, you know we've advanced things on the TRO front. We'll start there at our opening drive.
Welcome to the big league.
It's time for Hunt's Opening Drive. Presented by Fabry Chevrolet GMC in St. Francisville.
We at LouisianaSports.net published a story about an hour ago titled "Attorney Says Sankey SEC in Violation of Louisiana Law." That attorney is representing the 33 players who won a temporary restraining order in the 19th District of Louisiana last week. His name is Tony Clayton. I believe you'll hear from him on After Further Review later today. That remains to be heard and seen. But we spoke to him this morning, and he was very, very adamant about the position of those players. I thought the action by the SEC yesterday, Tuesday into Wednesday was strong. Unanimous votes are strong. I understand how those come to be. They are generally coerced and then put forward in a public relations matter, but that was 15-0 or 16-0 depending on the vote that you're looking at. And then the punishments that they suggested they would bring down if you played one of these players that's in violation of these new rules that had signed with or practiced with or been affiliated with a professional organization and come back, were start. 50% season suspension, 50% reduction in budget. Oh, by the way, you lose your voting rights, and we can kind of do whatever we want. Were what the punishments were laid out. It's clear that the SEC is taking this very, very seriously. And so I suggested yesterday, I think the SEC can enforce its rules. It's enforced fines forever and ever, amen. It's enforced suspensions forever and ever, amen. It's told teams they were ineligible to compete in postseason. It's essentially forced coaches out of jobs. Like, the SEC has held some power, but this is a different animal when you start talking about preventing players from making money. And that's the way these players and their representation, and keep in mind, this is not LSU. It is players and their representation. We just know that some of these players have committed to LSU, but LSU is not involved in this lawsuit. But Tony Clayton said it's our position the SEC and the commissioner are in direct violation of Louisiana law. And the most powerful quote he gave us that said, how can you create a bylaw that wasn't in existence before that retroactively overrules the judge? I think Greg Sankey ought to be forced to come down here in Louisiana court and explain to us how he can overrule a Louisiana judge. That doesn't sound like a guy who's about to back down, does it? No. In fact, he went on the record with us at LouisianaSports.net and said, we will test it, meaning they will test this new rule that the Southeastern Conference has put in place. And I will tell you, this is the grounds they will do so on, because the temporary restraining order that they were granted last week states very clearly, the defendant, NCAA, and its officers, agents, employees, representatives, successors, assigns, and all persons acting in concert or participation with it are hereby temporarily restrained and enjoined from prohibiting plaintiffs from competing in NCAA Division I athletics during the 2026-2027 season. Basically, the SEC put these rules in place and said, hey, you might have won that against the NCAA, but you can't play in the Southeastern Conference. Big Ten said the same thing. Big 12 saying the same thing. Notre Dame saying the same thing. They're saying, you may win against the NCAA, not us. And the attorney's pointing to this Article 5 in the TRO, which is very available, and says, wait a second. It says the NCAA and its officers, agents, employees, representatives, successors, assigns, and all persons acting in concert or participation with it are hereby temporarily restrained. So they're saying this does mean you can't do that. You can't see a ruling by a judge and then circumvent it after the fact and then say we've got the authority. That's what the attorney's saying. So ultimately, what we've got here is two sides that are not going to back down. It is vitally important to Greg Sankey and the Southeastern Conference and the Big Ten and most of the talking heads in the media that players who have participated professionally cannot come back to school. And keep in mind, this is not an LSU thing. It is not an LSU thing. Bryson Warren played 3 years in the G League and is committed to Texas A&M and got a restraining order. I don't see that blowing up my Twitter feed. Brylan Green just committed to Arkansas. Now, you may say, wait, this is kind of semantics here because he got invited to a mini camp. He wasn't in training camp, but the Chiefs and Vikings invited him to mini camps. He's participated in mini camps with an NFL helmet on, and I don't see anybody throwing fits about that. It's just LSU becomes the punching bag here, and it's fine because this is not an LSU story right now. So for those of you that are sick and tired of this, and I promise you, I am right there with you. I despise this stuff. I hate it. I don't like stuff that I don't fully understand, and the court of law is certainly that. I'm reading as much as I can. I'm learning as much as I can. I'm trying to educate you the best I can, stay engaged with you the best I can, inform you and entertain you the best I can. This is relevant because there are some players that have committed to LSU that are involved here. But it's not an LSU thing. There are lots and lots of players, dozens that could reach upwards of 100 that want to come back and do this that may have had affiliation here or there with the NFL, with the NBA, with the G League, okay? So LSU's the punching bag nationally. LSU's the poster child because this happened in Louisiana. People don't like Lane Kiffin. People don't like Will Wade. So LSU is the focus of this nationally. It's not an LSU story. Here's how it could be. This becomes the question. Because I don't care about the temporary restraining order and the back and forth and the SEC statements and the attorney doing it. I don't care. I'm so sick of it. I want to talk about Clemson, and we will in 8 minutes. But here is the deal, the nuts and bolts of this thing. If these players lose on Monday in an attempt to get that preliminary injunction, because the temporary restraining order is over after 10 days. So if they lose on Monday, I think this thing is cooked. They don't have ground to stand on. The court said you can't do it, and the SEC sure as heck said you can't do it, so you can't do it. If they win, the SEC is going to come back and take this to federal court. It will go beyond Monday if these players win. And the question becomes, if these players win, they're granted an injunction, and their attorneys tell them, we have legal ground to stand on. The judge just told you twice, once with the TRO and once with the preliminary injunction, you are winning this case. You can play. And the SEC says, no, you can't. We've got rules in place. We will punish you. Then it's an LSU story and an Arkansas story and a Texas A&M story, but those teams don't have to worry about this until Arkansas with one player, a safety, A&M until basketball season, and the rest of this, all these guys that are involved. But if you want to bring this home to LSU, is it worth it to Dr. Wade Roos, to Verge Osbury, to Lane Kiffin, to take the judge's ruling on Monday, bring these players in, and play them with the risk that a federal judge can overturn this, and then you become susceptible to the penalties the SEC put in writing earlier this week? Because if you are told, it's one thing for Lane Kiffin to get suspended for 6 games, okay? It's another thing for the SEC to say, hey, you just lost in federal court. these players are ineligible. You played them. Here's the punishment. I need half your budget for men's basketball when you played R.J. Lewis and for football. We're talking tens of millions of dollars. Tens of millions of dollars. I don't care about Lane Kiffin being suspended for 6 games. Whatever. Will Wade's been suspended for the NCAA tournament. What do I care? Tens of millions of dollars when you're dealing with these budgetary restrictions and you're in financially the situation that you're in that everyone has said is unsustainable based on the amount of money that you've dumped in to the rosters that you put together, and you want to tell me that you're now losing half your budget? That is a risk. And I am not smart enough with enough legal acumen to tell you how likely it is that you could win at the district level and at the state level and lose at the federal level. That's beyond my purview. I don't know. But you have to decide if that's worth it. And I will sit here and tell you right now that with what the SEC put on paper and my legal knowledge, which is minimal, I would not take that risk for a defensive tackle, some depth on the edges, and an 18-point per game score on the basketball. I would not do it. But this is the deal. The people in power believe they are in the right. These attorneys that are going forward with these players believe they're in the right. Trust me. LouisianaSports.net, we spoke with their attorney. And I'm telling you that Tony Clayton believes his clients are in the right. And you know that Greg Sankey believes he's doing what's right for collegiate athletics, no matter which side you fall on. And I found, unfortunately and disappointingly, that if you pull for LSU, you're all on LSU side. And if you don't, and you're on the outside, you're firing away from everywhere, reading columns about how the SEC is going to kick LSU out. That's an awesome column. Definitely not clickbait. Super sweet. But to me, if you're asking me if the risk is worth it based on Monday's ruling, not right now. What these players are doing right now is unequivocally worth it to them. It is worth it to Xavier Harris. It is worth it to Daquan Wright. It is worth it to Mark Mitchell. It is worth it in College Station to Bryson Warren. It is worth it to these players because there's 6 figures on the line. What they're doing is worth it right now. Is it worth it if they win for you, LSU, or any intercollegiate athletic program to take them in as this thing ping-pongs through appellate courts and see if you might lose somewhere along the line and then be susceptible to these penalties? And that becomes the risk. That's the story. It's not Lane Kiffin's trying to burn college football to the ground. It's not that if Daquan Wright plays tight end for LSU this year, the entire image of collegiate athletics is destroyed. It's none of those things. The sensationalism and the favoritism played here and there is ridiculous to me as I continue to read. You can probably sense the frustration in my voice. The story here is, if these players win on Monday, do you want to take the risk as this ping-pongs through appellate court and take some time? And my answer, not a freaking chance. Not a chance in my eye. But I'm confident Lane Kiffin feels otherwise. Because that is as competitive a person as you will meet. And if you turn this into, you're telling me I can't do this and the court says I can, I'm doing it, then he's probably going to do it that way. Because that's the way he's wired. You saw the excerpt from Oxford, and you see how this is going now. And I know for a fact he is paying close attention to this. I don't believe to the extent that he's missing meetings and not running practices and doesn't know what's going on with Clemson's defense and all those things. But he's monitoring this from the outside. And I'm getting a sense of how he's wired, and I just don't anticipate this to stop anytime soon. Honestly, my hope, these players lose on Monday. My expectation, they win on Monday. And then we see how brazen some of these schools are going to be. And it's not just an LSU story. It's not. And those people in the national media that want to paint it as such are being lazy, short-sighted, and narrow-minded. But these players are not going to stop until they're told to stop. And the question is, are the schools willing to bring them in? I don't want to talk about this anymore. Let's go to Clemson and talk about their football team. We'll do that next.
The Hunt Palmer Show
Back to school time from our friends over at Ochsner. Families get ready for back to school season. It's here. Ochsner Health is reminding parents that success in the classroom starts with overall wellness. Nutrition plays a huge role. Ochsner recommends packing balanced lunches, proteins, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and getting kids involved in meal planning so that those healthy choices feel more appealing to them. Many Ochsner Health Centers can offer both primary care and pediatric services in one location, and that makes it easier for families to coordinate care for everybody in the household. If you're looking for same-day appointments, that's available at many locations, and that can help families address unexpected health concerns quickly as children return to school, as well as other activities like sports and other extracurriculars. Extended afternoon hours after school, as well as weekend appointment options at select locations provide added flexibility for busy families that are balancing school, work, extracurricular schedules, all that goes into raising kids back to school time. If you want more tips on helping your family start the summer and the year right, you can go to ochsner.org/BR. That's ochsner.org/BR.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms.
Thursday's show is always brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef. You know, despite all the headlines surrounding Louisiana courtrooms and preliminary injunctions and temporary restraining orders, there's going to be a football game next weekend, which I'm excited for. I know that a lot of people are. It just feels like it's going to take us forever and a day to get there. It'll be LSU and Clemson from inside Tiger Stadium on Saturday night. Cole Bryson from the Fan Upstate covers the Clemson Tigers. Good enough to give us some time on the Jim's Firearms Hotline on this Thursday. Cole, thanks for the time. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, man. If I was any better, my name would be Hunt Palmer.
Oh, God. I just had a heated first segment. I'm so frustrated and annoyed by this entire thing. I just want to talk about sports, and I'm having to do legalese constantly. But let's talk some sports. There's some, you take training camp reports anonymously for whatever they're worth, and that's why I wanted to have you on. Some murmurs yesterday on the internet that there could be some quarterback issues at Clemson. Just kind of give me your synopsis of where that position is as Cade Klubnik moves on and you enter a new era.
No, there's definitely a question mark, I believe, Hunt, because Christopher Vezina, as of today, the 27th day of August, he has not been officially named the guy for the entirety of the LSU game, and I think that's important. Now, Christopher Vezina has been working with the first group, and he's projected to start, and I think he will. But Dabo Swinney said during camp that the competition could potentially continue all the way up until game week, which, in the next week or so. Freshman Tate Reynolds has been a part of that competition, and the expectation of Hunt, I believe, still is Vezina, but I don't know that freshman Tate Reynolds is that far behind him. So when you look at quarterbacks under Dabo Swinney in recent years, we talked to him about this at ACC kickoff up in Charlotte a few weeks ago. Dabo Swinney has been the loyal kind of coach that plays the loyal kind of quarterback, right? The guy that's been loyal to the program. And with that expectation, most believe that Vezina will be the guy. But when there's not a ton of separation from what I've been told from fall camp, don't be surprised if you and we all see freshman Tate Reynolds make his debut at some point during this game.
Is there a difference in their playing style? Could they complement each other, or is it a deal where they're just trying to find the guy that plays the best?
I think they're trying to find the guy that plays the best from what I've been told. It's a good question. I just think ultimately when you look at the ceiling, Hunt, of Tate Reynolds, I think the ceiling may be higher. And I think the Clemson coaching staff, and I think Chad Morris back at Clemson in his first year as OC, I think they may realize that. Would they say that in public? Maybe not. But I believe the ceiling to be higher of freshman Tate Reynolds. However, going back to what I said, Dabo's always been a loyal guy. And when you talk about knowing the system, Christopher Vezina does know the system. However, one caveat there, Chad Morris is new.
Yeah.
Chad Morris had to help Christopher Vezina learn his new system, right? So it's not like Vezina's been in the system for 2 to 3 years and has this huge advantage on the other quarterback who's a freshman. I think they both got a pretty fresh start. I just think essentially, to answer your question, I think that the ceiling of Tate Reynolds might be a little higher.
This sounds to me like an offense that wants to come in here and take some pressure off whichever quarterback it be and run the football. Does that sound right to you? I know that Chad Morris is old but new. How do you feel like they'll approach this thing?
Well, man, that's the key. And you know what? You talked about running the football. Gideon Davidson and that plethora of running backs that Clemson has, he's expected to be the lead running back. It starts with Gideon Davidson. They also added Chris Johnson Jr. from SMU, but no, 100%. They've got to be able to run the ball better. And if you go back to last year, guys, they were not able to run the football. They didn't run the football for, I don't think it was 50 yards against LSU at home last year, right? And they were just horrible. So I think while their average of total yards per game was near 400 a game last season, you go look at what they were able to do. It was just over $120 when it comes to rushing yards per game, like 3.5 yards per carry. And it was a team that just couldn't get that identity when it comes to running the football. So, no, 100% to answer your question, it is all about the run game. Regardless of who the quarterback is, Chad Morris has to, and I think he will, put an emphasis on running the football, because under Garrett Riley in the past few years, the emphasis on running the football was not there. Even last year in that LSU game, it was working. It was working for a little while, and they completely abandoned the run. So I think you hit the nail on the head there. I think Clemson and Chad Morris have got to be able to establish the run, not only against LSU, but all season long.
By that token, what is the outlook for the offensive line? If it's generally speaking, Clemson doesn't bring in a lot of transfers, so is it generally the same group, or has there been an overhaul there?
Well, you know what? You talk about transfers. No, not compared to what LSU did,
Sure.
Upgrading the offensive line, right, in a massive way. So if you compare the two units, no, they didn't upgrade. They didn't spend. You lose Blake Miller, who was a staple on that offensive line last year, who's now playing in the NFL, and you go on the road in Baton Rouge. Of course that matters. Of course that's just a huge part of it. I would not say that they upgraded in a way that makes Clemson fans, from the ones we've heard of here in the ones we've heard from here in the upstate, I would not say, Hunt, they upgraded in a way that makes Clemson fans feel good about the offensive line. There's some youth, maybe a couple of sophomores starting on the road in Baton Rouge, and I think there's some huge question marks about that. And that offensive line and that running game goes in tandem, right, with Colin Sadler at right tackle and Braden Jacobs. Last I heard, right guard was still unsettled. I know they'll have Harris Sewell at center, but they've got some guys who really are going to have to step up, because when you talk about losing Ryan Lithicum at center and Walker Parks at guard and Blake Miller at tackle, a couple of those to the NFL, you lost over 11,000 career offensive snaps and 161 starts from last year from that offensive line. So to your point, it's definitely a huge question mark.
Goodness, Cole Bryson is our guest from the Fan, Upstate, talking Clemson football here. We're going to stay on the offense, and I don't mean to ask a leading question here, so please correct me if I'm wrong, but I talked to y'all last year, and I know the hype around this game last year, and Clemson was coming off a playoff bid and had a lot of guys who were projected first-round picks, and I don't sense it feels the same up there right now. Like, what are the vibes entering this season and specifically entering this game right now? Is there a perceived lack of confidence in the fan base? I realize Dabo thinks he's got it all figured out, but give me a vibe check.
No, I think, man, from the fan base, I don't think vibes are high at all,
Okay.
just to be quite frank. To your point, last year's team was just so they were expected to be so good by so many different people. I think everybody out there, most pundits had them in the playoff, and some had them winning the national championship. And no, to answer your question, the vibes, man, this is a weird time, because I've been around Clemson my entire life, and I can say under Dabo Swinney, since Clemson reached its climax, this is the most weird. Let's just use the word weird. It's felt. And weird's really the only way I know how to describe it, because, like, Clemson fans, you said the word confidence, they don't have a lot of confidence. They just don't. Now, they've got dudes on offense like Bryant Wesco Jr. and TJ Moore who are really good receivers. But guess what? Clemson fans were spoiled for a long time with Taj Boyd, Deshaun Watson, and Trevor Lawrence at quarterback. And we all know how good those teams were under those three quarterbacks. And then you look at what's happened since. They hadn't had the dudes at quarterback. And I don't know that Clemson fans feel that Vizina's the dude at quarterback. That's why a lot of fans are pushing for Tate Reynolds, the freshman, because they feel like the hype are surrounding him is a little bit more, like I said, going back to the ceiling. But no, to answer your question, man, it is weird. It's really, really weird, because most seasons under Dabo Swinney in the past decade, there's been something special about this year's team to look forward to. And when you look at this 2026 team, Hunt, I just don't know what Clemson fans are really looking forward to. And, again, they've got really good receivers. But somebody's got to block. Somebody's got to throw the ball to the receivers. And I think this is 2026. after last year's disappointing 2025, I just think this is a massive year to get this fan base captured back.
Tom Allen, defensive coordinator, they have enough to win games on defense while the offense grows up and figures it out?
That's a good question. I think the defense is in better shape, to answer your question, coming into the season under Tom Allen. You've got guys like Sammy Brown, who is a returning starter, one of the centerpieces of Clemson's defense. I think Sammy will have a big game against LSU, but also a big year. You also have Will Helt, who started 13 games a season ago, and Ashton Hampton at corner, who started all 13 games. And reports have said that he's had an excellent camp. So defensively, I think that's where, going back to the last question a little bit, I think that's where some of the confidence does lie. Tom Allen, now remember, Tom Allen's defense at Penn State was really good. Last year at Clemson, not so great. We all saw SMU go through Clemson's defense like a knife through butter, right? We saw them get exposed by Duke and other quarterbacks in ACC play many, many times last year, hence their, 7-6 record. So I think when you look at what this team did last year, 20.5 points per game allowed, they were good at times against the run, but this year, under Tom Allen, they've got to set the tone. And I think if Clemson wants to be successful in 2026, Hunt, it's going to have to be led by this defense.
He is Cole Bryson from The Fan Upstate covering the Clemson Tigers. Great conversation. Thanks so much for the time. We'll get to the opener next week. It's one day at a time.
That's right. Thanks, Hunt. Have a good day.
Sure will. That's Cole Bryson. Appreciate his time. I want to follow up that interview here. But first, let me tell you about First American Bank and Trust. They're online at FABT.com. That's FABT.com. Been at this for 116 years, y'all. 116 years serving Southeast Louisiana. So if you're looking for a bank and want to bank locally, there's nowhere else to turn but First American Bank and Trust. They've grown to 25 locations throughout Southeast Louisiana, so there's always one near you. If you're up the I-12 corridor in St. Tammany or Tangipahoa Parish, they got locations there down the bayou, St. James, St. John, Lafourche. They got you covered. Over in Metairie, yes, sir. And they got you right here outside of Baton Rouge, Dutchtown, Jones Creek as well. Bank locally. Bank with those that are in your community. If there's a decision made on a commercial loan or a personal loan at First American Bank and Trust, it's made in Southeast Louisiana. If you pick up the phone and call First American Bank and Trust, you get somebody right here in our community. It's First American Bank and Trust. Check them out online at FABT.com. All right, y'all. I have heard a lot. I have gone on South Carolina radio stations. I have read, just had that conversation with Cole, had a conversation a couple of weeks ago with another member of the Clemson media, and I just don't sense any confidence at all in this program or this team. Offensively, defensively, it's just, they're coming into a buzzsaw in here. I know that a lot of us are talking about other stuff right now, but by the time next Saturday rolls around, it's going to be all eyes on those two football teams, and I'm struggling to find Clemson's edge here. I'm struggling. I really am. So we'll see. We'll talk more about the game next week, but this is not like Cole came on and he's a little dicey on this. They're all like that. And it's something interesting. It's certainly a different vibe than we felt last year. Now, none of us knew anything last year because we thought Clemson and LSU were both awesome, and they both stunk. So we'll see. Preseason expectations and vibes don't generally matter. But it's certainly something that I'm paying attention to. So let's take a time out. Come back with Luke Johnson next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Fabry Chevrolet GMC, online at FabryChevrolet.com. That's FabryChevrolet.com. Incredible deals on trucks all month long. And if you hadn't noticed, it's the 27th. So if you want to take advantage of these new deals on a new truck, you got to go see them in the next couple of days. 2026 Chevy Silverado 1500s, 0% APR financing for 5 years, plus no monthly payments for 90 days. Now, until, as I mentioned, August 31st. And 2026 GMC Sierra 1500s, 2.9 APR for 72 months, plus an additional $1,500 allowance. That's now until, again, August 31st. Looking for a pre-owned vehicle, they've got one that can fit any budget. Just go to the website, FabryChevrolet.com, and put those sliding bars right in your price range. They'll find it for you. It's Fabry Chevrolet GMC. They're on Highway 61 in St. Francisville and online at FabryChevrolet.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms.
Let's talk some black and gold. Thursday show is brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef. Saints and Cowboys in the preseason finale Friday night from Jerry World in Arlington, Texas. Luke Johnson will be there. He's with us on Thursdays, CourseWithNoah.com and The Advocate. Join us on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Luke, how are you?
Doing fantastic, man. Thanks for having me on.
Our pleasure. How big a concern are the mounting injuries for this team right now?
Well, I mean, there's a couple different ways you can look at it. I think if they're going to have injuries, that the ones that have happened are probably the best case scenario. We're talking about like really two starters and two, let's call them key contributors, right? Jordan Tyson, Brian Brzee, and then Cam Jordan and
Kamara
and Alvin Kamara. So, I think of all the injuries they've had, a lot of it has hit their depth, right? So, like if you're gonna get a rash of injuries in training camp, like we've seen stuff like this before, like that's kind of where you want it. But it's still concerning. I mean, we're gonna be going into the regular season here, and they're gonna be making roster cuts this weekend, and I think they're gonna have to kind of do some funky math with the roster, just because they're going to have guys that they need to keep on the 53 who are not going to be ready for week one, who they're not going to put on IR, so they're going to have to kind of make some spots and shift some things around just to make it work. So I think if I'm going to put like a panic meter on it, I put it at like a 3. It's relatively low level, but it's not a thing.
All we saw from the trip out west was the Rams annihilate the Saints backups. You were there for the whole part. Like, did they get anything accomplished out west? Was it a good week despite the score of the preseason game?
Yeah, like I saw him. We saw him go do joint practices against the Cowboys and the Rams, right? And I watched the offense during the Cowboys practice, and I thought they looked really good against a unit that a lot of people are thinking is going to be much improved in 2026. And even through all the nonsense with the brawls that broke out, I thought that they in their head on and playing the next play, which I think is a good sign to me. So that part was good. I think the Rams are just a really good team, man, like a really smart team, a well-coached team. And even though it was backups versus backups, like, when I was out watching the Saints defense against the Rams offense, I mean, the Rams just kind of had their way with them, So I don't know. It's one practice, one preseason game, but like that just kind of led me to believe that, like, I think the Saints are going to be a good defense this year. I'll run up against a team like the Rams or any one of these like high-powered offenses. I think they could be in trouble just because, like, they're a really smart unit. They're a buttoned-up unit on that side of the ball. They know where they're supposed to go. But outside of Chase Young, I don't know if they have any like real dudes on that side of the ball. So to me, like, it's a long-winded way of answering your question, but I think the preseason outcome, not entirely concerning. Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to take out of it when their top like 30 players aren't playing in that game.
Right.
But I do think that the joint practices, I think their defense is going to be good, but it's not going to be elite. Like, they're going to have their offense put up a lot more points this year if they're going to really be the team that we are expecting them to be, where they're competing for a division title.
Let's talk about Friday night. Is there a roster spot on the line? Is there a player that needs to prove something? Is there anything of substance to pay attention to against Dallas?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of the stuff that I've been just kind of watching play out over the course of the preseason. I think the running back thing is super interesting right now because, like, everybody, I think, has made a case for themselves, and nobody has like just run away with it, And considering Alvin's injury, we don't really know exactly how much time he's going to miss. I think he's going to miss regular season time. I think you could be talking about like 2 spots among like 4 guys, right? Does not help Devin Neal's case that he's not playing, but like I think Audric Estime, Kendre Miller, C.J. Donaldson, I'll be watching those guys closely. I think all of them have shown some nice things in the preseason. And outside of that, it's really just like, who is going to make a case where, and do they play special teams, right? Like somebody like Michael Heldman, right? Had that really nice preseason opener, didn't really do much in the second week. Can he give you something on preseason on special teams? Because you want those guys who are going to help you out in those phases who can then jump in as needed if there's an injury to Carl Granderson or somebody that's in front of him on the depth chart. I think that's really the thing I'm most watching out for. And then obviously the kickers. It feels to me like they are fully expecting Daniel Carlson to just kind of take it after signing him this week. But it also says something that they kept all three around. I mean, this is a team that is just, as we've just mentioned, like they've had 22 players missing from practice at various points throughout this week, and they're still carrying 3 kickers on the roster. Yeah. So I think it's not necessarily cut and dry to me, but they probably just want Daniel Carlson to just take it. So we only saw him kick field goals once yesterday. I'm assuming he'll get some sort of an opportunity against Dallas. He'll probably be the first one out there because they want to see him in the game, like with the game operation. But that's like the really big, like, let's call it a starter level position where it's just completely undecided at this point.
And then the backup quarterback, what's the reps distribution looking like this weekend, and what is there that you've observed at that spot behind Shuck?
Yeah, so they've been really, ever since putting Zach Wilson in as a starter for the Rams game, I mean, they've just been kind of like trading backup reps, right? So because of the injuries, because they're ramping up to the season, they want to get the first team more looks. They're not doing like 2s and 3s anymore, so it's kind of hard to tell like who is the 2 and who is the 3. I would imagine it'll be Spencer getting the first go. I don't think Tyler Shuck's going to play. Kellen Moore said, some starters might play. I don't think Tyler's in that number. So I would expect Spencer to get a half, and then Zach Wilson to get a half. I don't think they need to see Hunter Deckers. I think they know he's not going to make the roster. So that would be kind of my expectation for it. But for all I know, it could also be Zach Wilson starting tomorrow, and they kind of flip-flop the order of things, but I would expect each to get a half. Enjoy
Dallas. Safe travels home. We'll talk next week after roster's cut down. Thanks, Luke.
Sounds good, buddy. See you.
He's Luke Johnson, Saints beat reporter for The Advocate, NOLA.com. Always appreciate his time on Thursdays. Thursday show is brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef. We still got a lot to get to. In 15 minutes, Connor O'Gara going to be with us from Connor moved in the offseason. He's now with the next round, and he's going to talk SEC quarterback plays. With LSU plays Tennessee this year, LSU plays Arkansas this year, LSU plays Alabama this year. All 3 of those teams had a quarterback competition. We'll call it controversy competition, and have named their starters. I'd like to hear about them because I haven't spent a lot of time locked in on other SEC programs with as much as gone on down here in Baton Rouge. Kind of left that in Tampa at Media Days, but I'd like to talk to Connor about that. So we'll do that coming up in 15 minutes. A lot to get to on this Thursday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Highland Insurance Group, HighlandIG.com, HighlandIG.com. Jonathan Carbo and his team, they know what they're doing when it comes to group and employee benefits. And if you are a CFO or a business owner that deals with the benefits, you understand how cost prohibitive it can be to make sure your employees are taken care of with healthcare, with vision, with dental. If you want another option, if you've had a couple of bad renewals or you dread the one that's coming up and you just want to talk to somebody about what may be available to you, the Highland Insurance Group and Jonathan Carbo are the first call you need to make. I'm not promising you a silver bullet here. I'm not promising you an 18% reduction in premium. I'm promising you a quality conversation and the fact that they are an independent broker that does have contract with multiple carriers that can explore options for you and your business to make sure that your employees are taken care of and the bottom line looks the best that it can. That's the Highland Insurance Group. They're based here in Baton Rouge. They'll help you out statewide. It's Jonathan Carbo and his team at the Highland Insurance Group, online at HighlandIG.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms.
Thursday show is always brought to you by Sagrera Farms Angus Beef. This one also brought to you by Swing Easy Golf Club in Baton Rouge. Swing Easy, GCBR.com. That's SwingEasyGCBR.com. Thursday kind of starts the weekend, right? Want to get off of work and kind of ease into the weekend with a little bit of golf. Don't have a tee time? Swing Easy Golf Club right there, Perkins at Seagan. Stop on by. They got a refrigerator full of cold drinks for you. Get some cold beer, seltzer, grab your private bay, and hit some golf shots. You can do it on the driving range, low key. You can tee it up and try to shoot your best score at Pebble Beach. You can do either one. And if you're looking to play on Friday night, you can do that at Swing Easy Golf Club. You want to tee off early Saturday morning before the day gets started, you can do it at Swing Easy Golf Club Sunday afternoon. Swing Easy Golf Club right there, Seagan at Perkins. If you've never played simulator golf, just get on by and see it. It's such a cool place. It's comfortable. The technology's great. It's low-key. You can get a couple of drinks, hang out with friends, or enjoy the bay by yourself. It's Swing Easy Golf Club. They're online at swingeasygcbr.com. And, of course, as I mentioned, Seagan at Perkins, swingeasygcbr.com. All right, I told you in the first segment, for those that were listening, and if you weren't, you can go back and listen to it. I gave what I didn't anticipate to be as impassioned as it was. It's just the way that we've been dealing with this legal stuff with these fifth-year players. I told you it's not an LSU story yet. It's not. There are multiple suits. There are multiple rulings. There are multiple restraining orders. There are multiple sports involved. I gave you some of the names of the Kentucky and Arkansas and A&M players involved in this, and it reaches a long way. It's not an LSU story right now. The media will portray it that way, and they will suggest that Lane Kiffin's the ringleader, and they will throw stones at LSU because that's an easy thing to do. But it's not an LSU story yet. Not until LSU is involved. And right now, they are in an ancillary way, but not directly. They're not involved in the lawsuit. For this segment, I am going to talk to the LSU side of things. This is what you signed up for when Lane Kiffin became your head coach. To be a lightning rod, to be unafraid, to be in the public, and I know that he's sat off social media, but yesterday he jumped on the Pat McAfee show and gave his case. And he's never going to rest from trying to win. And there will be folks that say that he pushes the limits too far. There will be some that say that he's breaking rules. Anyone can have whatever opinion they want. But what's constant, what remains true, is that he's going to push the envelope as far as he sees fit. He is remarkably competitive. And because of his track record, he's going to generate a ton of buzz. And most of it nationally is going to be negative. Because he has rubbed people the wrong way on the West Coast. He has rubbed people the wrong way on the East Coast. He has rubbed people the wrong way on the Gulf Coast. And that's going to be the national perception. And I don't think most LSU fans care. I don't think they care. And I'm confident that most LSU fans welcomed Will Wade back with open arms. And what Will Wade was run out of town for was way worse than what's going on in the shadows right now. Like, way worse. Right now, there's just an option being explored to see if LSU can supplement its football team. Nobody's doing anything that is flagrantly breaking rules. Now, you can push back and go, wait a second, they just put this rule in. Well, that's kind of the point of the whole deal, is that they suggested this rule was put in retroactively after this decision was made. And that's what they think, the attorneys at least think, is unconstitutional and against state law. But right now, it's just a group of players that are trying to get their eligibility back. And Lane Kiffin is aware of that and will do what he thinks is in the best interest of his football team should that ruling come down. He didn't hire a lawyer. He didn't sue the NCAA. He didn't sue the SEC. Now, you can say that Lane Kiffin should just say, we're not taking these guys. That's what I'm telling you. He's not doing that. When you got Lane Kiffin to be your head coach, you signed up for the guy that's going to do whatever it takes up to the line to get wins on the field. And there will be a huge portion of LSU fans that support that. If he was doing the same thing in Oxford, Mississippi, there would be a huge portion of Ole Miss fans that would support that. Now, those exact same people will point at Lane Kiffin and call him the scum of the earth. If he was doing it in blue and red, they think, that's just our lane. But people are blinded by their allegiances. And unfortunately, like I said at the top of the show, I'm seeing national media members being essentially blinded by their hate for Lane Kiffin's track record in this instance. But if I'm talking to you LSU fans and you're listening to me, this will not be the last controversy Lane Kiffin gets involved with. But ultimately, his motive in these controversies is going to be to get his players eligible, to get his team to be the best it can be, to win football games, to compete for and win championships at LSU. There will be a huge majority of you that will listen to me to go, hell yeah, that's my guy. Go Tigers. And there will be a few of you that go, I don't really love that. But the reality is that's what it's going to be. So if you're an LSU fan that's struggling with this a little bit, you're going to have to either swallow that and throw your purple and gold shirt on, or at least realize it's not going to change anytime soon. I've had a couple of conversations with people close to Lane. Not him. Don't know him. Never met him. Don't know if I ever will. But I've had some conversations with people close to Lane, and I know how he feels about a lot of things based on conversations he has. And it's about winning. And he thinks Jack Pyburn and Xavier Harris and Daquan Wright can help him win. So if a judge says they're eligible, I think he's going to put them on the team. And the people are going to go nuts. He's going to be a lightning rod. But again, going back to it, that's what you signed up for. That's what you're going to get. What I also think you're going to get with that lightning rod is a lot of wins, because that's what his track record also says he's going to do. Connor O'Gara after Sports Center. That is next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
GoTros Outdoor Power, GoTrosOnline.com, GoTrosOnline.com. Get on by and get you that zero-turn mower from the folks at GoTros Outdoor Power. I don't have a huge lawn. I don't have a huge property, so I don't need a monster zero-turn mower. But I did see my neighbor's yard being cut yesterday, and I looked over, and there's a Hustler. I hope the guy that was cutting that grass wasn't the neighbor, was riding one from GoTros Outdoor Power, because they're the largest hustler dealer in the state of Louisiana. They're the National Hustler Dealer of the Year 2 of the last 3 years. And they also are so proud to offer you an extended warranty. They're the warrantor. So you go immediately to the local source for that extended warranty. You can add 2 years or 200 hours to the manufacturer's warranty when you buy that zero-turn mower from my friends at GoTros Outdoor Power. Check them out. 2 locations, Airline Highway in Baton Rouge and in Gonzales. You can also find them online at GoTrosOnline.com.